Good morning, welcome to the program. Today, the new Prime Minister Anthony Albanese heads to Jakarta along with the Foreign Minister and Trade Minister as part of his push to build ties in the region. At home, the energy crisis faces the government. I'll be joined by the Climate and Energy Minister shortly. Also on the program, the Opposition Leader Peter Dutton speaking to our political editor Andrew Clennell, and Andrew is with me now. Andrew, a big day for the opposition with the front bench, but in terms of the government as well, it's getting on with its own agenda.
Yes, Kieran, and Australia is set for its first referendum in 25 years, with the last being the unsuccessful Republican vote in 1999. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is planning for a referendum on an Indigenous voice in the Constitution in 2024. You would have seen during Anthony Albanese's victory speech on election night, he mentioned a commitment to the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. Linda Burney is the Minister for Indigenous Affairs, tasked with putting all this together, but the PM is intricately involved. The government believes it needs big media voices on side, so needs to sell this properly. We have already seen our Sky News commentator colleague Chris Kenny publicly back this voice concept, for example. The bottom line is referendums are never successful in Australia without bipartisan support. So Liberal leader Peter Dutton's role in this will be critical. And as Kieran said, I'll be interviewing him shortly. Last week, he left the door open to supporting it. The referendum is required for the setting up of this advisory group of Indigenous people to advise the federal parliament on aspects of policy. So, for example, a childcare reform would lead to advice on how this affects the Indigenous. A decision to intervene in the Northern Territory when there is accusations of child sexual abuse, as occurred in 2007, would be reviewed first by this advisory body. It is still to be determined if these participants would be paid full-time or the rest. Linda Burney will begin consultation on it. So that advisory body would be the subject of a referendum, an Indigenous voice in the Constitution. Then there is a separate proposal out of the Uluru Statement for a truth-telling or Makarrata commission, like a reconciliation commission that may not involve legislation to form it. Then, and this is something that would certainly not be achieved in a term of government but would take years, the government would work towards a treaty with Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders, first mentioned by Bob Hawke in the 1980s and in place in New Zealand and Canada. Overall, it's been a pretty busy first week for the new ministry. They've had to start talks on what appears to be an energy crisis, announced they are cancelling the cashless welfare card, and already signed off on a submission to the Fair Work Commission, which they argue honours an election campaign commitment to recommend low-paid workers get a pay rise the same as inflation. Here is the critical line in the FWC submission by the government. It says, in conducting its decision on wages for this year, the government recommends that the Fair Work Commission ensures that the real wages of Australia's low-paid workers do not go backwards.
And Andrew, as I mentioned at the top of the program, Prime Minister Albanese off to Indonesia today to meet Jokowi, the president.
He is off to Jakarta after a phone call with President Joko Widodo ahead of the trip. Anthony Albanese wants to ensure that this important relationship with our northern neighbours is prioritised early in his prime ministership. One sticky subject, however, is expected to be the looming attendance of Russia at the G20 meeting in Bali in November. Australia will put its view as I understand it, but there is no suggestion we would boycott the meeting if Russia did attend, as the PM believes to not attend the meeting would be against Australia's national interests.
Andrew, also my guest this morning is Chris Bowen, the Energy Minister and Climate Change Minister. A lot to talk to him about.
Yeah, and there will be no pressing by the Albanese government of the gas trigger. I'm sure Mr Bowen will confirm this. The trigger would force gas exporters to keep some product on shore, because even if the government did it, it would not come into effect until January 1. But Resources Minister Madeleine King has spoken to the gas companies over the past few days, and there is some hope out of that they will play ball in ensuring a reliable East Coast gas supply, which will not see price rises go through the roof. One senior government source did quip to me on the weekend, where the hell was the Morrison gas-led recovery?
And the opposition leader, a busy day for him as he finalises the new team.
A coalition reshuffle expected to be announced today, Kieran. Angus Taylor is expected to become Shadow Treasurer. meaning the Leader and Shadow Treasurer are from the Conservative faction, with Deputy Liberal Leader Susan Lee from the centre-right. The prize for moderates in the Liberals is Simon Birmingham getting the Senate leadership and Foreign Affairs.